May I start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Oh, no. We already started. Okay. Okay, thank you very much to Mr. Bill Steele. I'm thrilled to have him online because I've been educated by his 3.5-hour documentary, which I have here, the Money Master, which is really a piece of work that's really important. I think it was in order, from a chronological point of view, the first one that I met, and perhaps the most important. And let me tell you this, Bill. Many others are speaking about the solutions. Many others are speaking about what we should do, etc. And you as well are doing that. But your work, in my opinion, is unique because it really gives an overview of all history. And to be honest, I recalled all the studies of history that I made during my high schools, and I said, looking at your documentary, now I understand why. Because studying history without knowing all the things that you mentioned was like a series of names, a series of emperors, a series of battles, and I didn't understand why they happened. You take this one, the Money Master, and you actually say, wow, now I understand the underlying truth that nobody has ever told us. And by the way, for those who have not seen it, he starts from the Roman Empire. We are Italian, I'm Italian, and the killing of Caesar happened because of he wanted to change from gold coins to from silver to gold based coins, etc. But that's something we don't talk. It's my strong recommendation to have a look and re-look to that documentary because it's very important. And another one, which is, in my opinion, another big piece of information, is The Secret of Oz. It's fantastic to understand how, under the appearance of this story, the author put all the conflicts that were behind the control of money. I've talked too much. I want to listen to Bill, what he has to say. My intent, as I was telling you before, is to try to understand what, from a pragmatic point of view, can we do, and what you are doing in the United States, what lesson learned we can take from you, etc. Let me start with a question. When somebody awakens and understands that money is created out of nothing, and understands that it happens like this because it's in the hands of private banks, private cartels. One of the questions that people say is, wow, so this will create a huge inflation. And if you want to explain them that it's already like that, it's already happening like this, how do you convince them that taking away the power to produce money from the hands of private people will not lead to, let's say, a higher inflation? Because this is some of the things that most often are said as in a discussion, as an opposition point.
Right. Well, the thing to remember is that, yes, you can, if you're suicidal as a nation, it can lead to inflation. But at least your nation will be in control of that process, number one. And number two, there is no interest attached to the inflation. So your country will have the benefit of what's called the seigniorage, which is the profit made from money. Whereas now the private commercial banks have all the benefit of the seigniorage. Then on top of that, they create all this money as an interest-bearing debt, so they get to charge us interest on our own money. And on top of that, they use the profits from this illegal gain to control the political process of every nation. And therefore, no true reform is ever possible because you don't understand how money is created. As William Jennings Bryan said during his presidential run in 1896, which was, of course, the source of the writing of The Wizard of Oz in the first place, because he lost that run, and the author, L. Frank Baum, was so despondent that people didn't understand what that race was all about, that he wrote The Wizard of Oz and put in the symbolism of monetary reform just to try to tell them to pass the torch down to future generations, or whatever authors do. But the famous William Jennings Bryan quote that has to be remembered in any of these conversations, and I wrote it down just in case I would forget it myself, which is the case. And that is, without monetary reform, no other true reform is possible. And that's because as long as banks are controlling the political situation, which they will, as long as they are lending your government its money, then by definition the government is not the sovereign, the banks, the lenders are the sovereign. As long as that situation takes place, no true reform to return power to the people and money to the people and self-governance to the people can ever take place. And so you can pass all the laws you want, but any that affects the bank's power to control the situation and ultimately rob the people of true freedom will never take place. Those bills, those pieces of legislation will be modified by the banks whenever their power is threatened. And so you're just kidding yourself if you think any other form of legislation will ever enhance personal freedom or the freedom of your nation until you tackle the monetary reform issue.
Exactly, because what I've noticed is that the first time people understand that there is someone who is printing money or creating money out of nothing, the first thing they think, if I was them, I would create money for myself and that's all. And the matter is much worse. They are creating all the conditions to maintain this kind of power. So they are buying politicians, buying the judge, buying the universities, buying the press, information, etc., because they want to maintain things as they are. Talking about the information and the mainstream media, my question is, do you manage in the United States to get out of the web? Let me call, in my opinion, the web is a wonderful place, but it's like a reservoir. I mean, it's still a place where few people go. The big mind conditioning apparatus is the TV yet. And my question is it possible for people like you or other that are studying this phenomenon to get out of the web and have also some appearances in the radios, in the TVs, etc.? Is it something that's coming out?
Well, I've been on this monetary reform topic since 1980. So where are we now? 14. So that's 34 years ago. I wrote my first story on this 34 years ago. The Money Masters I filmed in 1995, and it was released in 1996. So that was 18 years ago. Subsequently, I've done over 3,000 radio and television interviews, mostly in the United States. Sorry, that's not a small number.
No, it's not. It's a huge number, but television as well? Sorry to ask this.
Never on the large networks, however. And of course, the reason is, and all what you mentioned, you just mentioned it very quickly, but each you mentioned that the control is through the politicians, number one, number two through the media, and number three through the academic community. And each of those has a story behind it. These are not just things that we say and we don't have proof of. The hardest one to get the proof on was the politicians, the political process. And when I visited Israel about 8 or 9 months ago, I revealed that in both the latest edition of my new documentary, Jekyll Island, and on my my YouTube channel, which is the primary form I communicate through on a daily basis. It's Be Still and the number 3. That's BSTILL and the numeral 3.
Be Still 3. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, and your website instead is quite your name, billstill.com. or dot?
Yeah, BillStill.com, and all of my YouTubes are put up under the video link, the video tab on that.
Yeah.
But I was speaking in Israel, and a lawyer came to my first presentation in Tel Aviv, and he said, I have to talk to you privately, and so we set up a time to meet at a party a couple days later. And he revealed just this astonishing story, and he was willing to go on camera with it, and that was that he was the head of one of the largest law firms in Israel, and his law firm, their main business was to serve as the liaison between the banks and the political process. In other words, his law firm would transmit the messages from the banks to the politicians, what the banks wanted the politicians to do. And the way the banks control this process is through something called short-term call notes. These are 30-day and 60-day notes, and what their strategy is to get each of the 8 major political parties in Israel indebted through these call notes to between 2 and 3 times what their entire net worth is. So if the net worth of a political party is $1 million, they'll try to offer them loans between $2 and $3 million on this short-term call basis, and therefore they can absolutely bankrupt the political party within 30 or 60 days. And as I said to this guy on film, well, that's a significant power, and he said, no, that's absolute power. The banks hold absolute power over these political parties through this method. And I found out subsequently on a trip to Ireland that it's basically the same thing there. They do it a slightly different way. I'm sure it's similar in Italy or every nation around the world. They have different variations.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
May I ask you, why did this gentleman come to you and say these things? Kind of, I don't know. Why did it?
He got into some type of an argument with the banks and broke from them and ended up suing them. And this lawsuit is all part of the public record. It's been played out in the Israeli newspapers all along. But the newspapers have never really drawn the full implications of what this meant. And now they have, as a result of this interview that I did with him and the subsequent YouTube, and then subsequently I was asked to write a column in the most influential financial daily newspaper in Israel. And now they've that had such a big reaction that they have now brought on one of the major monetary reform bloggers in Israel to write a column for them on a regular basis, so they don't have to translate it from English into Hebrew anymore. And now this is having a tremendous impact in Israel, to the point where I was walked in by the monetary reform group right into the Knesset, their parliament, and was able to speak with their most influential head of their economics committee in the Knesset, a man by the last name of Braverman. He was a World Bank official in Washington, D.C., where I ran my newspaper, interestingly enough, and so we had a lot in common. He knew exactly where I grew up and all this, and so we really connected. And now subsequently, after all this has come out, Mr. Braverman, well, at the time, Mr. Braverman said, yes, I believe you, but I can't support you publicly right now because there's not sufficient public support. They would kill me. Not kill literally, but he meant politically. He would get nowhere because there was not sufficient public support for this idea. So now that the video has come out, and now the newspaper article has come out, and now there are newspaper monetary reform articles on a regular basis, now Mr. Braverman has come out publicly and said he's going to introduce legislation to make this sort of action on the bank banks illegal. No longer will they be able to lend directly to political parties. And this is of tremendous significance in trying to break this cycle. And if we can break this cycle just in one country and then show the results, show how monetary reform actually works, it doesn't destroy the economy, it enhances the economy, then every nation can send people there, can investigate, and there will be solid data and reassurance that it did not destroy one nation. And what more appropriate nation than than Israel, created by the Rothschilds.
Exactly. You just mentioned to start in one nation, but it's not one generic nation. It's a very important one. And I know that many believe that the whole heart of this plot is coming from Israel, which I don't know. To be honest, I don't really
but it's
care.
It's not.
Yeah, but I don't care.
No, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, and the individuals don't matter. That's why, once I did the Money Masters, I quit emphasizing the Rothschilds so much, just because it doesn't make any difference. If you arrested every Rothschild and every Rockefeller in the world tomorrow morning, nothing would happen. Their system would go on without missing a beat. It's not the people behind it. That's going to get you nowhere other than condemnation. It's what they're doing. What they're doing is so easy to understand. Yeah, it's just a fake out.
And that's why I like your work so much, because not just in the field of money creation, but in many deceptions that we are running today, there are many who are really fascinated with this, I would say, raising of the hatred, because they're pointing the finger to this one, to this other one, and this leads to nothing, to nowhere. But no, even worse, this is part of the game of the enemy, in my opinion, talking from my Christian point of view. I think that raising the anger is not the solution. Raising the anger is something that gives room for other forces that shouldn't have room in ourselves. So I think that you are completely right. I completely agree with you. The important thing is to address the solution. Talking about solutions, let me ask you one thing. Let me be a little bit provocative, because talking about television and the room that this kind of theory have in television, in Italy there is no room at all in the mainstream media and television, except for one, which has not a lot of room, but more than the others. And this is carried out by a journalist, and who is bringing in Italy the modular economy, the modern money theory. And I would like to know if you have an idea about that, if you know that who is Mosler, of course, and if you agree with his theory. The modern monetary theory.
It's very complicated, as I understand it, and also I believe. I don't know enough about it to comment. There are friends of mine who like it. There are friends of mine who don't. I just don't know enough about it.
Yeah, if I try to take an idea from you by simplifying this. They make a good analysis of the system, and of course they understand the fact that the money is created out of thin air, etc. As far as the therapy is concerned, in my opinion, the fact that the money has to be inserted into the economy without debt, they're not completely aligned with other theories like yours, because they say that the only engine of the economy should be the state, and the state should borrow money without any problem of repaying the debt, which in my opinion has a basic fault, which is they have not understood what money is and how money is created. So they start with a good analysis, but the kind of solution that they give at the end is a halfway solution, is not a complete solution. Talking about
since you're a Christian, you understand the biblical proverb that says the borrower becomes servant to the lender, and so I would oppose any form of government borrowing. It should be illegal in any nation on earth. Governments don't need to borrow. That it's the most important power of a government is to create its own money for the benefit of all citizens equally without debt. Why would you borrow when you can create? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I don't believe in nationalizing banks. I think we need a thriving commercial banking structure, and we need them competing with one another to give the public the best deal. If you have a monolithic national bank, I think that would be a catastrophe. I think we'd be right back sooner or later where we started. You need that competition, but banks have to have their own place. Once again, as William Jennings Bryan said, it's not that the government should get out of the banking business. It's that the banks should get out of the governing business, and that's what the problem is.
Exactly. Yeah. And some of the critics of the MMT said that they just want to change the driver at the head of the bus, but the things would remain the same. Talking about how the banking cartel is capable of controlling all of the things, including universities and education, etc. I've read last year Paul Krugman's book, and the Crisis Now, something like that. Paul Krugman, of course, being the Nobel Prize for Economy, because my son, who is studying economy, said, you have to read that, it's a very interesting... Yeah, it's interesting from one point of view, but he doesn't face the problem of money creation. At a certain point, I think it's around page 90 or something like that, he says very candidly, well, a Federal Reserve prints money out of nothing, but it's not a problem. They should continue to do that, and on the contrary, they should do more, because we have to give a boost to the economy. And he completely ignores the fact that every penny, every dollar, every whatever is produced with a debt attached to that. So probably, I don't know if he understands that, and he cannot say, or if he does not even understand. But it's strange that even a Nobel Prize...
He might not understand. That's the sad part about this, because just saying that the Fed is printing money out of nothing means that you don't understand where money comes from. The Fed, the first time ever the Fed has created money out of nothing is with quantitative easing. The banks create all the money by interest-bearing loans. The Fed does not create the money. The Fed allows the banks to create the money. That's what this whole fake out is all about, that the Fed somehow is part of the government, and the government, the government is protecting us from the banks. It's not the case. The Fed is just the curtain in the Wizard of Oz to make us think that somebody is controlling the banks. It's not true. It's a fake curtain.
Yeah, it's true. And even though sometimes when you talk to people who deny this, they start saying, for example, not talking about the Fed, but talking, for example, like the national banks that we have in Europe, like the Italian National Bank, they say, yes, it's owned by private banks, but the people who are in charge of it are nominated by the government, so it's not true. They are acting in the interest of people, etc., etc. And you lose your hours in talking to these people, because, in some cases, I don't think they are even honest. By the way, I already know that you have not heard before of Giacinto Auriti, who is an Italian lawyer and philosopher who died I think 10 years ago, 2002, and he had the same ideas that we are talking about, but in my opinion he was bearing something more. He was talking also from a legal point of view of who is the legal owner of money. He said, since money is a convention, is something that we all agree upon, is the people who accept it that makes it real. It's not because there is gold behind, it's not because there is something behind, but because we all accept this. And so we are the owner of that. And so, as you said, I don't care if the central bank is private or public. That's not the matter. The real problem is who is the owner of money at the moment of its emission or when it is issued. Okay.
Well, the exact thing that I say is it doesn't matter what backs the money. All that matters is who controls the quantity.
Yeah.
Right now, commercial banks control the quantity of money in every nation on this planet. And that's not the way it should be. The way it should be is that some entity operating in the public interest for the benefit of all the public equally should be in control. Typically, that is some subset of government. There's a lot of people who complain that you can't have the legislature being in control of the quantity. That's fine then. Have some different entity, elected or appointed. However, there's probably a dozen different ways to do this better than what we have now. But even if the legislature was in control of money, that would be infinitely better than having the banks being in control of national money. Why? Because number one, they charge interest on it all. Number one, they get the seigniorage. They get the benefit of creating money out of nothing. Number three, with all that money, they can control the political process, and our situation is hopeless.
Yes, and defend themselves and maintain the status quo. One last question regarding what we can do, because of course we have an idea of how the system would work and we have this theoretical point of view, and we are all working to raise this awareness. In the meantime, what do you think about the local alternative currencies or complementary currencies? Do you think they can help in the process? They can be a partial solution? Are they a waste of time? What do you think about this?
They're a partial solution. I know people who have started complementary currencies, and they spend a lot of money. They have to print the bills. That's very expensive. Then they have to go around one by one and interest merchants in accepting, storekeepers in accepting the bills. It's a very difficult process. It's a good thing to do. But it's very difficult. Here in the United States during the Great Depression, for example, there were over 3,000 complementary currencies that sprang up because people didn't have money. And I can assure you, when people don't have money, they're going to make their own money, one way or another. And so it's a good thing to do, but it's been very difficult in the past. And that's why when I understood suddenly that Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies were simply internet-ready complementary currencies, suddenly I latched onto it, that this is a good alternative. This is... Unfortunately, it's not the ideal solution, because instead of banks getting the seigniorage, the profit from making money, the programmers who make the cryptocurrency in the first instance get the seigniorage, but that's much better than having the banks get it, number one, because the programmers do put out a certain amount of energy, time, and effort to create these things. They deserve something. Do they deserve the massive amount of seigniorage they get? No, they don't. But it's still better than the banks. Yeah. Is it as good as if the government created its own digital currency? No, that's the ideal situation. But until we get there, these digital currencies are just humanity's not having enough money and attempting to create their own natural workaround, just like they did in the Great Depression. And so I applaud these efforts and support them. It's not ideal, but it does show people, what is possible, what the direction we should be going. We have to take this power back from the banks one way or another.
Yeah, I don't know if you have heard about Argentina when they issued the so-called patacones. I think it was 10 years ago during the crisis in Argentina, and they worked in local markets. They were exchanging goods with this privately issued money, which was called patacones or something like that. Okay. Thank you very much. I have had the pleasure to talk to one of my mates again, and I've also learned one very important thing about this video that you've made with this interview with this Jewish gentleman. We can find it at billstill.com. Is it linked in your?
Yes.
Is it the last?
It's on the website.
Yeah. Is it the last video that is listed or not? This interview. How is it called? No.
I'm not sure. If you typed in the search term Israel, there are only 2 or 3.
Okay. I will watch them for sure. Thank you very much, and go ahead with your wonderful work, and we are all learning from you, and I hope that we will be more and more, and we will come to a point when everybody will ask, how are we so stupid to use the money issued by private people? When looking at the past, people will say, they were stupid. Now it's not yet so, but I think that we are very, very near to reach that point.
That's true. History will look back on this as a really stupid period. How did they ever fall for that? Letting some private bank issue the money and charge you interest on it? What's that all about?
Yeah, for sure.
But, they control the media, so that was what it was all about, and that's still a tough nut to crack. But the Internet, just alone, the power of the Internet is going to ultimately destroy this money monopoly the banks have.
As long as we have it, let's use it. The Internet.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's been a pleasure.
The banks all depend on the Internet. They aren't going to destroy it. The Internet will be forever.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much. I quit the